And welcome back, intrepid travellers. Yes, we're back in 80 days and continuing our adventure onwards. Let's get straight into it. Last, we were in the town Irisk after catching a giant train across the Russian countryside. As you can see, we've had a weird trip so far, where we did a giant loop because of some bloody airship troubles, but let's continue on. The next train... What? Wednesday? Screw you. We can't wait till Wednesday. That Urga. Thursday. Departs tomorrow. Alright. That's a long-ass trip. But we couldn't get there because that is just for military officers, which is really sucky because that's where I wanted to go. But hopefully we can get to Beijing, and then I want to get to Yokohama because I've got some stuff to sell there, and then onwards to North America. We're running quite behind, day 40, so we're at the halfway point, which is a bit sad. Oh, that set me back so much going back to Moscow. Nighttime, and it is from nearby. We heard the ferries moving back and forth. Lake Baikal and nearby the mining machines cranked on through the night. The local people do not go out at night, otherwise all was still. The local people do not go out at night, I noticed. I could not tell if it was due to devotion or hard work, or if some terror roamed the streets. Whichever. Yeah, let's keep exploring. But found nothing for my wanderings but an old beggar who insisted on reading my palm. Yep, I allowed him, and he screwed up his eyes before foreseeing a great loss in Hong Kong. I thanked him, and he nodded and crept away. Yeah, let's take his example and not go to Hong Kong. Hong Kong's down here, isn't it? Yeah, Hong Kong. So one thing that helps playing this game, geography. I'm not great at it, but I know, a little bit. Extra space. Go! Iron ore freight train. We boarded the steam train from Irisk. It was not a passenger service, but was carrying huge quantities of iron ore, and very slowly indeed. Still, we made ourselves as comfortable as we could. At least we were leaving Russia behind. Yes. We were tender fog. He was looking a bit sad there. It felt as though we were the only passengers aboard. Perhaps we were, though. I would not have been surprised if the guard had not taken money from a few others and stowed them in the adjoining cars. Converse. Greetings, guard. You two stowaways are comfortable, I trust. Begin Beijing. I hear there are no airships allowed in Beijing. Oh, Beijing to... Where do we want to go? Lahore? Pyongyang? Oh, you were no help. So, Urga. Yeah, I'll have to see what's in Beijing first. The train swept on through endless countryside, getting faster hour by hour as it burnt through some of the stocks of coal it carried. We passed the time in silence or in conversation. Yeah, I think my master likes silence, so there you go, silence. Excellent. Evening drew in, and the train thundered on, seemingly without thought or pause. Sweet. In the evening of the third day, we approached the city of Urga. We had been told nothing about stopping here and had tickets to Beijing. And there seemed no reason to change our plans, so we stayed aboard. An hour went by, perhaps we refueled, and then we were off once more, rattling away through the bleak, empty steeps. Yay. A quiet day that passed without incident. The train guard came and went, bringing food, a thin soup in which noodles floating like dry worms. I did not like it. I have a superior palate, but such a thing is hardly an asset out here in the wilderness. Both of us cannot wait to be in the city. As we approached Beijing, Monsieur Fogg became increasingly animated, ready for the next step of our journey. That was a long trip. The false passport could earn us well here. Okay. Alright. We need that. Yokohama, San Francisco. Merv. We didn't go to Merv. That annoyed me. Alright. Well, that helped. We've got all the trips there now. I needed to get to Pyongyang. Explore. Yep. There were no airships sailing across the Beijing sky, nor any evidence of electrification. Though the Chinese did not shun technology. Though the Chinese did not shun all technology, palanquins were drawn by intricately worked and gilded iron lions as often as human servants, and I saw animated metal and jade dragons. Perched on the imperial buildings, that would not have looked out of place. Perched on the gables of imperial buildings, breathing curls of steam vapor and flapping their enamel feather wings. Furthermore, I was lucky enough to catch the opera or the people, a performance of the famed Suchi opera. The cast consisted entirely of hydraulic elegances, automatic by any other name. Ancient tradition, no other nation boasted such a tradition. Though the Artificers Guild manufactured the bodies and mainsprings of the performers, their complex facial mechanisms were built by imperial artisans in strict secrecy. But the opera itself, my friends, it was a glorious spectacle. Though there were few props, the sushi were extravagantly costumed and capable of acrobatics that would press the most athletic of flesh and blood actors. We were the guests of an opium trader, a Manchu court official, we don't like left of the law, who clearly believed us to be spies or troublemakers of some nature. Despite my innocent expression, possibly sensing my propensity. Despite my innocent expression, which was wearing rather false after so many international escapades. As we departed the auditorium, I slipped away from our hosts and went backstage. I made a polite inquiry about Dowager Empress Cixi, who was a figure of a near legend in the West. She modernized that she was born into poverty. She is a modernizer. Emperor Tuxi is lucky to have her wisdom and counsel, he said, carefully avoiding any direct criticism of the emperor, who was rumored to be a feckless sort. We thanked our host and made our way back to our lodgings. A pair of opium addicts were slumped in an alley, faces blankly blissful despite the emancipation of their limbs. I turned my face away, but could not burn the damning sight from my mind. It infected all my memories of the splendor of Beijing. Aww. Plan. Saturday. Sunday. We're gonna have to wait till Sunday, it looks like. Although it says it's closed to military. Huh. We might try it anyway. Departs tomorrow. Yeah, we'll go down to Hong Kong. I know the guy said we'd see a loss, but we have to do it. Because I can't go there. Closed to all but military personnel. We could risk it. I wonder where the boat actually goes. With the last few hours of the evening, I went out to explore a little and entered into conversation with a cheerful Siamese ragamuffin who had lost a monocle, which I helped recover, and who then told me that you could pick up handheld mirrors in Pijong, extremely valuable, and San Pedro. I thanked him and smiled, and he went about his business. We're not going there anyway. That's Pyongyang. We're going over here. We boarded the Xiang, a Chinese junk with billowing pattern sails and a red and gold phoenix painted upon its brow. Bound for Vlaxsk. Do you take passengers often? Captain Zhao made a small gesture with his right hand, as if waving away a stray thought. In peacetime we do, he said. It was not a surprising response. It had been 10 years since the last Opium War, but European powers and Russia still scratched at China's borders. I spent the first day watching the scenery go by and relaxing. Even a valet must take some time off. As night drew on, incredible stars filled the sky. It was the most peaceful, beautiful moment. Nice. Well, we know where we're going from, Vlad. I saw Captain Zhao reading a Chinese newspaper at breakfast and asked if he would tell me the news, expressed surprise. Asked if he would tell me the news. He pressed his lips together. It is out of date. The Shenpao was printed in Shanghai, and I only pick it up when I happen to dock there. What is the most interesting story? The paper is campaigning against the employment of young women in opium bars in the French concession. He pointed at the article in question, as they are often asked to perform immoral services. The French traders must be up in arms. They should campaign. The French traders must be up in arms. Captain Zhao nodded seriously. It has turned into quite an uproar. I spent a stimulating afternoon in discussion with Captain Zhao as the wind filled our fully battened sails and sped us on our way to Vladivostok. The Xinjiang had to dart between the busy junks filling the harbour to find a space to dock. I found Vidox to be quite intimidatingly martial, especially after the elegance and beauty of Beijing. Still, there was nothing for it, and I hurried after my master into the city. So, Yokohama, 2 days. Nope. Too expensive. We're going to need our money for this trip. Right, what to buy? We could get that. We might sell some decent money. We'll get the railway hat. That'll do. And explore. So we leave on Monday. The military port of Vlorsk looked out over the calm black water of the Sea of Japan and was populated largely by sailors of the Far East Fleet and a mix of Chinese, Korean, and Russian residents. Sailor Town. I was curious about foreign residents and managed to chance upon Du Feng, a talkative Chinese merchant who spoke a remarkable array of languages, including French. "We are not foreigners," he exclaimed. "Good sir, my family has lived in Shai for many generations." "Haishin Wai?" I repeated. "Haishin what?" "Haishin Wai," I repeated, using the rudiments of the language I had picked up in Beijing. "It is pleasant to meet Guadalu with some respect for languages," he laughed. "Most foreigners have the trouble," he said neutrally, and I was rather abashed. Haishin Wai means sea cucumber cliffs. It is the Chinese name for the city of Vlorsk, though once it was called Yongming-Cheng, City of Eternal Light. "The earlier name is more evocative," I opinioned, and Feng agreed. "Yes, my friend, much is lost with time. The hour was getting late by the time I made it back to my hotel, but my adventure was far from over." An imposing Imperial Army officer accosted me in reception and subjected me to a thorough search. I gave no objection, and he studiously went through our cases and pockets, although, of course, he found nothing seditious. "Vlorsk is a closed port," he declared. "You be held while a decision is taken in your case." I pleaded with him. But I may as well beg the thunder not to roll, and so it was that we came to spend 4 nights in a Russian military jail, a much more grueling confinement than the relative luxury of the station prison in Berlin. It was without much discussion. We were pointed to the docks and told to leave quickly. All right, let's go. Perfect timing. We avoided the Russian military ships and instead took passage on a Korean vessel, crewed by a mix of Koreans, Mongolians, and Siberians who regarded Monsieur Fogg with grave curiosity. "Why does he wear that hat?" one of them marveled. "'Tis the hat of a gentleman," I informed them, "an English gentleman, who is the most refined of the breed." They continued to goggle my master at mild disbelief until he retreated below decks with the slightest of furrows etching his brows. Let's give him a little love. For the first day aboard, we kept ourselves mostly to ourselves. The crew seemed busy with their task, and I was happy to have fewer of those myself. Monsieur Fogg, with his usual impervious self, however, and made his calculations and read his newspaper. Meanwhile, the boat steamed onwards. Alright, get a little bit more love. One of the cabin girls, Alina, spoke good English and was attached to us as a translator, though she created as much conversation as she explicated. "Do you know my parents?" "Doubt it. Are they famous?" "Are they famous?" Elena nodded. "My father was a Russian officer, maybe, I think. And Mama comes from the famous Cossack family. They're all soldiers." "A Russian officer? Maybe." I raised an eyebrow. "Well, Mama met him when she was dressed as a man and joined the Cossack host. He was very surprised, I think." Elena shrugged. "Mama says he died of shock, leaving me as a present. But I think he probably ran away because Mama is so fierce." She looked proud rather than distressed at this prospect. I blinked down at this little cabin girl, rather at a loss as to how I should respond. "That's nice," I hazarded, and she nodded enthusiastically. "Mama runs the boiler room. All the sailors are frightened of her," she told me rather wistfully. "One day I will be like her." Alina made a mock fierce face, and I pretended to quake in terror until we both began laughing uproariously. More seriously, a friend in the boiler room was useful. "I would like to meet her," I said, and Alina giggled with delight. "I will ask," she replied. "Greetings, mademoiselle. Yokohama to San Francisco." New Orleans. New Orleans to Dallas. Ah, Top Hat's in Dallas. Sweet. Houston. Goodbye. Elena knocked at my door unreasonably early in the morning, eyes bright. Mama says she wants to meet you. She seized my arm. Lead the way, mademoiselle. She descended into the bows of the ship. I felt the heat and noise of the engine before I saw it. The rumbling whistles of the boilers, the shouts of men shoveling coal, the thumping of the pistons, and the groan of metal. A woman with muscular arms sheened with sweat and hair shorn to her ears presided over the activity with well-worn confidence. She glanced over to us and grunted. I bowed deeply, as I would to any lady. Unimpressed, she spat at my feet, while Lena chattered away in an unintelligible dialect. The formidable woman regarded her daughter with a certain detachment which masked deep adoration. The girl bloomed underneath her mamma's nearest gaze. We took our leave soon after, and Lena smiled at me radiantly. Isn't she wonderful? She breathed. I nodded enthusiastically, and Elena bestowed another bright smile upon me. I can't be mean to her. Elena laughed as I hung over the ship's rail to get a better view of Yokohama. As we neared the port, she gave me a huge hug, which surprised me. Oh, a hug goodbye. Though her mother watched me with hard eyes through our exchange, we watched anchor as the sun set. It lit the foreign flags in the harbour with bright fire as we dipped below the horizon. Nice. Alright, we gotta sell stuff. Yep, why not? Yep, awesome. Yep. I could get rid of that. It's not worth anything anymore. Alright, let's see when there's... Oh, it's departing already, is it? Yep, alright, go. Go, go! I didn't want to miss it. Those things don't come by very often. The Water Lily was a sleek iron-hulled ship to submarine prototype, captained by a severe American by name of Wicker, who wore a top hat at all times and preferred tea to coffee, which greatly endeared him to Monsieur Fogg, of course. In addition to the usual compliment, the Water Lily carried an entire corps of brass-goggled engineers and a brace of submariners on standby, should the captain call the order to submerge. Huh. Part cruise ship, part submarine. The rumor was that she had been a slave ship, and had only been refitted for passenger transport a good few years after Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. But I saw no trace of the dark past aboard the crew. The crew seemed a happy family and welcomed us into their iron-hulled bosom. The Water Lily. It's a big ship. There you go, Fogg. Our cabin, while hardly spacious, was adequate to our needs. One of the midshipmen came by to show us how to use the pressure seals in case of submersion, but in all other aspects I looked forward to a peaceful steamship ocean crossing. I was not to be so lucky. Ooh. Dun dun dun. The salty air blew cool and sharp against my face as I opened the door onto the top deck. It was painfully early, and the only passengers awake were a group of Chinese labourers hunched miserably over the stern. One of their numbers was vomiting copiously into a bucket. I offered him my own secret remedy, which I had brewed up for just such an occasion. He swallowed it down with a certain dubious desperation, but immediately improved in both complexion and temperament. He thanked me most profusely. Shishi! Thank you, I said, using one of my few Mandarin expressions I had picked up in my travels. They laughed uproariously at my pronunciation, but seemed altogether pleased by my attempts to render thanks in their tongue. Nice. So, we are San Francisco. Yep. We'll take the longest trip we can to Burlington. It's going to be a long trip, though. I accompanied Monsieur Fogg to a game of whist with a family of American missionaries who were traveling back to San Francisco for a family wedding. My master began strongly, but Mademoiselle Loretta, the eldest girl, had a sharp eye and won several hands in a row. A new round was dealt. I noticed Mademoiselle Loretta slip a card into a sleeve. I blinked twice in pure astonishment and glanced up at her face, which was utterly calm, betraying nothing of the action of her nimble fingers. The minister's daughter was a cheat, and a skilled one at that. I filed away the knowledge. Yeah, let's not call her out. Catching her eye to convey that I had noticed her sleight of hand, she blushed with all the manufactured prettiness of an accomplished actress, then raised one eyebrow in silent challenge. Our journey continued on. I like her. Oh, I'm sorry, Fogg. I spent today in company of the Water Lilies submariners. They were all hardy men and women who preferred the dim, enclosed spaces of the hold to the top deck. Too much sky, one of them said, squinting suspiciously. Her crewmate nodded. All that fresh air. They shuddered collectively and suggested a bracing race to the boiler room. I tried to keep up, but could not quite adjust to the lack of light and continually tripped over my own feet. The commander, a short Japanese-American woman, pronounced me an utter disgrace. I decided to salvage my reputation amongst subreaders, and so lifted my head proudly and suggested a test of acrobatic skill or drinking. Acrobatic, yep. Though the submariners were all fit as horses, they were never attempted to, for instance, form a pyramid or walk the length of a corridor on their hands. They competed with me gamely. Yep, gamely. I did not hustle them. But admitted themselves outclassed. Commander Davis even applauded. It's me to my friend, she said, clapping my heavily on the shoulders as I took my leave. You're not so bad. Thank you. We're making a lot of friends on this ship. To Burlington. I can travel aboard the Canadian Pacific Railway from Regina to Winnipeg. Burlington, Washington. Burlington, Albuquerque. Yes, I do. I was climbing the rigging entirely as exercise, of course, and not at all for the purpose of spying on the crew to appease my own rapacious curiosity. When I heard two of the crewmen arguing in a pidgin mix of English and Japanese, I peered upwards, eager to match faces and expressions to the voices I could make out. They were both Japanese, but one of them was dressed in Western style, and the other in Japanese hantan and hakama. As they watched, the trouser-wearing sailor grabbed violently at his compatriot, but missed his footing and tumbled over the platform's edge. I closed my eyes as he fell, but the sound of his body hitting the deck was much worse than any bloody sight. I looked up and managed to catch sight of the fallen sailor's companion, his face still and pallid. Was that guilt in his eyes, or merely shock? He slipped away before the captain arrived, and I followed his example. All was clearly not well amongst the crew of the Water Lily. Ooh. Intrigue and murder. Fog. The Water Lily's crew held a funeral for the dead sailor. I was not specifically invited, but felt a sense of responsibility, having witnessed the man's fatal plunge. Captain Wicker led the Christian service with customary grimness. I was surprised by the absence of sailor's companion, who had been arguing with him just before he fell. Yet he was not the only one missing from the funeral. Oddly, only half the crew had come to pay their respects. That death at sea was commonplace, and the crew had too much work to do. Not even halfway yet. God. Slow boat. Storm, too exhausted to write a proper entry. Suffice to say we are still afloat. As we settled down for the night, I was struck by an unrelated thought. Monsieur Fogg, the dateline! I have altered our watch already, Monsieur Fogg replied calmly. Did you think I might forget? My master was of course correct. With an eye such as his, it was unthinkable that he might miss such a detail. We had reached the point directly opposite Greenwich, where the hours we had lost in travelling around the earth were added back. A whole extra day. So we're only halfway. That makes me sad. I think this is like the easier half of the trip though. Yesterday's storm hit us with a little warning. One moment I was preparing, mending, adding a ribbon, mending one of my shirts. With careful stitches, the next we were being tossed from one end of the cabin to the other. We were only lucky that our bed was securely nailed to the floor. The ship shuddered and moaned as the seas flickered and lightning. The storm lasted nearly 6 hours and blew us far off course. The captain spent most of the day peering at his charts, trying to locate our position. There is no land upon the horizon. Day 60, Monsieur Fogg murmured that night in his sleep, and still some distance yet to travel. What? Don't go there. The captain announced a change of destination. The Water Lily would now make for nearby Hawaii rather than San Francisco. We would make port in Honolulu in 5 days and would have to find our own further conveyance from there. Monsieur Fogg's lips pressed ever so slightly together. This, my master said, will not do. Indeed not, sir, I agreed, not even daring to calculate the delay and expense our unexpected diversion would cause. Monsieur Fogg gave me a cool, appraising glance. Captain Wicker has reneged upon his word as a gentleman, he said curtly, before lowering his voice to an almost furtive undertone. Our course is clear. We must mutiny. I opened my mouth to argue the point, but he continued on without so much as a pause. See to it, passport. Use your natural charm. Quite, he said, and the agreeableness of a gentleman who has just given his valet a near Herculean task. We will mutiny in 5 days. When we reach Honolulu, make your preparations as you see fit. Damn. Like, that's just as close. That's silly. My task was clear. I was to foment mutiny aboard the Water Lily. I decided to begin by exploiting the crew's animosity towards one another. Divide and conquer, or so dear my mum always counselled. Gossip and rumour were a good way to start, I thought, though such subtleties might also be lost on a crew of sailors, so I decided to spread rumours about the Shinto crew members planning a revolt. A few of the more nervous officers started carrying an extra brace of pistols, but nobody of rank gave the notion much credence. Wait. It was with satisfaction that I noted a certain increase in tension aboard the Water Lily, a situation would carefully have to exacerbate if my master's mutiny was to have any chance of success. Next, I attempted to ingratiate myself with the Chinese labourers, because they were already my friends, who were still rather storm-tossed and discombobulated. I managed to convince them to play dice with me and proceeded to lose deliberately to gain their favour to the tune of £50. They were quite pleased at their newfound bounty, and combined with my grace in losing, this seemed to make them look upon me with a greater favour. I don't want to mutiny, though. I had attempted to suborn the obvious targets aboard the Woolly, but wars were often won by the unexpected. With that in mind, I turned my attention to the ship's artificer, a tall, rather imposing woman in a short jacket embroidered with the guild's copper lily. We're notoriously neutral in the matter of conflict or civil disruption, but I showed her my artificer's medallion. She sighed heavily and told me to call her Shahnaz. It seems that I must honor my guild's debt, she said with evident reluctance. You may call upon me. Fog. I spent the day putting the last finishing touches to my planned mutiny. It was a matter as delicate and serious as the creation of a souffle by a master chef. I spread word of my signal amongst my allies and retired to bed early. One could not mutiny on a bad night's sleep after all. We reached Honolulu in the dark. The captain took a small skiff into the harbour with a few of his officers, wishing to inquire about repairs before putting the Water Lily into dry dock. Monsieur Fogg watched the boat for a long moment. Now is the time, he said crisply. I trust everything is in order. He didn't do anything. I voiced my doubts about the readiness of the crew to mutiny, which caused Monsieur Fogg to almost heave a sigh. Let us hope that you are, in this case, mistaken. With that, my master retreated to his cabin, and I called the signal to arms. The Water Lily erupted into chaos. Everywhere was a clash of sabres and pistols. Now and then I heard the shriek of the officers' sonic weapons, but I was not alone. The half of the crew that followed the Christian faith fell in behind me, lit with the desire to teach the Shinto crewmates a lesson rather than mutiny. But their anger helped stoke the fires of the rebellion. The Chinese labourers rewarded my friendship with steadfast loyalty, throwing themselves into the mutiny with all the desperation of men and women who utterly loathed sea travel, and longed to revenge themselves upon their instrument of torment in any fashion. They lit fires and tore up the already ragged sails, causing some unwelcome chaos. The submariners, led by Commander Davis, emerged quietly. There was a long, terrible moment when I wondered at their allegiance, when Commander Davis caught my eye and nodded. We know when it is time for a change, she shouted, driving back any stragglers loyal to Captain Wicker. Suddenly, a horde of rat-sized clockwork automata boiled up from the engine room, tripping up the officers and crew loyal to the captain, and emitting gouts of scalding steam at any who dared attack them. The Water Lily's artificer then was on our side. I saw Mademoiselle Loretta trip up one of the loyal officers out of the corner of my eye. She tipped her bonnet in my direction, a gesture of respect from one player of the game to another. The whirl of the battle took me away, but not before I saw her falsify a magnificent feint and block the gangway to the navigation room. By noon it was clear how the day would end. The mutineers raised a ragged cheer of victory. I myself had ended up with a debonair scratched upon the cheek and had somehow come to be in possession of a brace of pistols and 3 sabres. By the time the captain and officers returned, we had complete control of the ship. They were quickly trussed up and skiff or brig returned to their skiff to seek their fortune in Honolulu. Monsieur Fogg emerged, surveying the scene of the recent battle with a calm eye. Well done, he said with a classic gentlemanly understatement. Still, it was well done, and more if I do say so myself. We just mutinied a ship. That's kind of funny. Although it's beaten up now because of that. So, rumblings intensify of Russo Japanese war. Oh, it's going faster now. To my amazement, the successful mutineers held a vote and elected me the new captain of the Water Lily. I tried to refuse to little avail. What did I, passport, know of captaining a vessel such as this? Rest assured, Miss, it was in great part a ceremonial title which had made no particular demands on my seamanship. Monsieur Fogg, though pleased by the success of our mutinous endeavour, seemed to regard my elevation and rank with some wariness. I am, he admitted, as we prepared for it, somewhat put in mind of Bonaparte. Parbleu. The new first mate, a cheerful girl by the name of Wang, came to me as an intriguing notion. As you know, the Water Lily is a ship-to-submarine prototype, she said. If the submariners cooperated, we could convert to submersible and make port in San Francisco in 2 days rather than 5. I called in Commander Davis, the leader of the submariners. I can see why I'm here, but the answer is no, she declared. I may have aided you against the captain, but I do not trust you or your leadership. May I go? Surely you wish to use the submersible, I declared. I do, but who exactly are you to ask me? Forgive me, you are no captain. I could argue with that. Oh. Fog. Gotta keep his, thingy up. We spent most of the day repairing the damage done to the ship by the mutiny. First Mate Wang took care of the particulars with an efficiency that I was loath to interfere with. Therefore, I spent my time amongst the crew, attempting to reconcile the Shinto with the Christians. I promised them each separate services and shrines, which seemed to placate them a little. Still, it was clear to me that the scars of the mutiny would not be so quickly healed. We've got him back up to 50 now. I happened upon First Mate Wang holding hands with Commander Davis at the rail of the boat. It was too late to trouble with the submersible, and I had no reason to interrupt their moment, so I moved along. We were making good time to San Francisco and had repaired much of the damage to the Water Lily. I began to feel rather comfortable in my captaincy. I gave serious consideration to the seafaring life after my master, and I had completed our around-the-world challenge. In the evening, I spoke to Wang about our onward journey, and she told me that you could obtain cotton flowers in Omaha and can sell for a profit in Havana. An interesting fact, though I did not know if it would help. All right. We arrived at San Francisco 20 days after leaving Yokohama. We had managed not to lose even a single day, despite the obstacles our seemingly simple steamer journey had thrown up. At my urging, Captain Davis assumed control of the ship, and it promptly sank beneath the waves after we had disembarked. There we go, we're in San Francisco finally, day 72. It's not looking crash hot for us right now. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you next time.